Question from Fakery here. Is direct experience a worse way to appreciate beauty than using layers of technology and theory?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to this idea of like we can just passively receive artworks. Um, Popper would disagree with this. Everything is theory laden, and that's as true for art as it is for any other knowledge. So if you're, aesthetically appreciating a thing, it might feel passive, like you're watching a film, you just understand it. Well, it's because you've automated, you understand English, you've lived your whole life seeing 3D representations of the real world, so it feels automated. But you're doing this active generative conjecture refutation process in your mind. It is critical rationalist, and you're applying theories to these things as you would anything else. So no, you're always theorizing. Everything is every person who looks at artwork is an art critic and a philosopher.
I think I would even take it even further because I think every person who views a work of art is an art creator, is an artist. It's as if art appreciation and art creation are a duality that work together. They're both, two sides of the same coin. I don't know how to really phrase it, but they're the same thing in some very fundamental way. If you appreciate a work of art, you have to be creating it in your mind. So the question that I have about direct experience and layers of knowledge, it comes from this idea that, well, personally, I like art analysis and I like to do art analysis. And that sometimes involves like pausing a movie, for example, and reflecting on the cinematography of the movie or like rewinding to make sure I understand the camera movement that just happened. If I'm reading a book, I might actually stop and measure each sentence and see what is the rhythm of the sentence, how many syllables are in each sentence. And if I'm reading a poem, I'm going to actually look at the rhythm of each words and see if there is a consistent meter or something of that nature. That's how I like to engage with art. But when I describe that type of thing and how I do that with other people, they kind of they don't like it.
It's because dissecting a work of art kills the beauty. The whole point is the direct emotional experience. Art analysis is anti art.
So that's where the question comes from. Having recently read the beginning of Infinity, and there's the second chapter, which is closer to reality, that it describes this misconception that direct experience can actually lead to knowledge or whatever we might consider to be direct experience. The example given is you can look up at the sky at night and it's really dark, and then you have these little pinpricks of light, and from that you might conclude that it's really the lights are very small, they're very cold, and they're very dim. Closer to the direct experience is that's what you get. But then when you have layers of technology, when you have layers of knowledge, when essentially astronomers now are never looking directly at, they're not like waiting to the evening and going out and looking out at the stars. Once you have all these layers, you can start to understand that a star is actually very big, it's actually very bright, it's actually very hot, right? So you have layers of knowledge and you almost get rid of the direct experience completely. And that leads to greater understanding. And to me, if I'm thinking of beauty as a form of knowledge, the experience of beauty as a form of knowledge, that would then follow that it's worse to experience a work of art without layers of knowledge and better to experience it with layers of knowledge. And so we can give a very simple example like reading a book. This is something that Tom, you mentioned in the video. If you're reading a book and you don't understand the words, then you're going to understand there's going to be less beauty to be had, right? I have this book in front of me. It is a book in Japanese. I cannot read Japanese. Now, there's some things I can get from this book, but since it's in Japanese, I'm going to be missing some parts of it because I just can't read Japanese. Now, the book is mostly color, so I don't really need to be able to read that much in this case. That's so it works well, it's fine. But generally speaking, if I don't know how to read, I can't understand a book. I can't get any of the beauty from it. And then having this layer of understanding, being able to read would make more beauty available to me. And an example for Brett, like if you like K-pop, you can enjoy K-pop without having understood any Korean, but if you do understand Korean, you add a layer of understanding, you add some layers of knowledge, and you can appreciate it a lot more. And even with that example, like understanding music production helps appreciate K-pop a lot more because it's fantastic. The way that the music is produced is amazing. So having a layer of understanding of knowing how to create sounds, like knowing sound design, knowing how to use a synthesizer or something like that, that adds a lot of beauty to K-pop. I'm reading a book right now that's about classical music, and it's about how classical themes end. And it's fascinating to me. I just like it, and having that level of detail to me enriches the art a lot. Because I could just listen to classical music and have it all just wash over me, and I can just enjoy it on a direct level, or I could sit down and I can think, literally think about what part of the song I'm in. Like if I'm listening to a piano concerto, am I in the fourth movement of the piano concerto? Is this the sonata rondo movement? Am I listening to the second recapitulation of the main theme, or am I listening to the development section? And hearing that differently, and then hearing how each of the themes are presented differently, that adds to me that adds a lot of beauty. But the thing that I am wondering more about is how far can that go? I'm wondering how deep can we get into getting away from the direct experience? Now, as you mentioned, Tom, it makes it a lot of these things can become automatic. You train it for a while and then it becomes automatic. And that to me makes sense. Now when I listen to classical music, it's definitely automatic. I don't have to think about it. So you can train those things. But there are a lot of things that just don't come automatic and can't become automatic to me at the moment. There are some movies, if you're watching a movie, and there'll be some parts where there's single frames of content, and you'd have to be able to pause the movie to appreciate that single frame of content, which in that case necessarily takes you away from the direct experience of the work of art. I quite like this notion of dynamic symmetry in visual arts. So there are some times where I would want to actually pull out my ruler and write lines and see if the lines that are generated by the work of art are in harmony with the inherent lines of the frame that the work of art is within. That to me, that's something that's very interesting, and I don't even know if it's possible to be able to visualize that without having to actually like stencil it out. So that to me, we're adding layers of understanding on top of the work of art. And what I wonder is how far can we take it? Like, will there ever be a point where there's so much beauty in the work of art that is impossible to even experience with actually just watching a movie, for example, or just looking at a work of art, or listening to a song? You have to have taken notes about it. You have to have, to say it through the analogy, you have to have a radio telescope and you have to have a computer that analyzes the relationships between those. And through that, you can find the beauty, but you never directly experience it. So that's really where the question comes from. It's something I'm wondering, and I definitely wonder how far it goes.